VRChat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission, to seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts, to discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind, and to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. How is it going? How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah. Woohoo. We're here again in Gunter's universe for another show. I'm really excited. I have with me tonight Geoff Skow. He's the co-founder of Fishbowl VR, a crowdsourced testing platform for VR developers. The startup has more than 500 VR early adopters in its remote testing panel, and is working with top VR studios, including Schell Games and Jaunt VR. Prior to Fishbowl, Geoff held led growth, marketing, analytics, and usability efforts at Inkshares, a crowdfunded publishing platform, and PopExpert, an online education marketplace. Let's give it up for Geoff. How you doing, Geoff?
Woo-hoo. Good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. I'm noticing that we have a video about to start up here, some psychedelic music. It's about to get real, but let me go ahead and try to pause that. The way we use our videos here is a little interesting. Pause. Okay, I think that's going to work now. Cool, dude. Yeah, I'm so glad you got to make it out to, virtual reality here. We got to hang out a couple times in real life, but here we are in VR. I met you at Oculus Connect 2 and then out at SVVR just a few months ago, so it's a fantastic time.
Yeah, and nice to meet here. It feels a little bit like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but it's
I guess I need that kind of music. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I'm going to answer the tough questions. Did you get Rift or Vive? Did you need to phone a friend?
Yeah, ask the audience.
Cool. Sets inspired after Ghost in the Shell. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that anime, but that's where that comes from. But it does feel like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I want to be a millionaire, a VR millionaire, I guess. A lot of times I have a co-host with me. He's not here tonight. His name is Bob, a.k.a. Cosnifex. He's actually part of the Left-Handed VR podcast team. He's got a lot of work to do, and he just can't make it, so I totally understand that. And we have K-Dog, who's actually Bob's brother. He's on cams. Thanks, K-Dog, for recording this.
Anytime.
Okay. All right, so let's jump into the interview. We'll start off with, some of those sort of generic questions, like, what's your background in technology?
Background in technology. I guess before I got into tech, I started my professional career in journalism, and then ended up getting a role at a company down in San Diego called the Active Network. It was kind of like Ticketmaster for like things you do, so like 5Ks or marathons, triathlons, Little League, etc. And I guess that started like a long, strange trip. And then here in the Bay Area, where I met my co-founder and started Fishbowl, I had various roles in marketing, analytics, usability testing. I've always been a huge fan, kind of in any different company I've been an advocate for the importance of getting your product or your software or whatever it is in the hands of real people and kind of observing and listening with what they're doing. And that kind of has led to this.
I see. So where did the transition to VR happen? Have you been thinking about VR for a long time? Is this something that popped up with the Kickstarter? How did you go to get into VR and then want to start up a VR company such as Fishbowl?
Yeah, it's funny. My dad's an aerospace engineer, and his company used to work on combat flight simulators. When I was a little kid, I remember like they had a flight simulator of an F-16, and I have a fraternal twin brother, but we would like play Top Gun on Nintendo, probably dating myself, and then we'd like insist that we hop in these things and think they suck because you had to actually know how to fly it, a fighter jet to use those. But from that point forward, I've always been interested in kind of simulators, and then we would actually follow him around to different air shows. I remember, I forget where it was, but I I was overseas and I saw a VR arcade. This would have been like 1996 or something. So I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 or 16. And I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. There was like Dactyl Terror, I think was the name of the game.
Yeah, I've heard it.
And the first, yeah, so like the first business plan I ever wrote was to try to do a VR arcade at the Torrance Mall in Southern California.
Oh, really?
So I've been interested in it. I did not get funding for that at 15. I don't think I
don't think
wasn't
anybody
able to run a Coke a Coke machine business then. But I've been interested in it ever since. And then, yeah, so kind of keeping tabs on things and between the Kickstarter and then really, I mean, it sounds maybe a little cliche, but Ready Player One really did like re-spark my interest in the space, and just once I moved up to the Bay Area, just really trying to get my hands on any demo I could. And then as I started to see what people were working on, it was like, I don't know exactly how, but I want to be involved in VR because it clearly is going to be taking off, and it's awesome.
Right. I mean, we have similar, like I'm from the NES days and treasure that console and the games I used to play all the time. And of course, I'm a Ready Player One fan. I get a lot of my of course, I have my name that partly comes from there and partly comes from something else. And I loved the book. I read it before the Oculus Kickstarter, so it was quite this like, wait a minute, I just read this amazing book that is what I've needed for a while. I needed a really good VR story, and I love the 80s, and it's just the right timing for me and my age and all. I mean, it's similar to Ernest Cline's age, and yeah, it's been fascinating, the whole Ready Player One, and then getting into VR. So here we are in VR in what was being described in that book.
Yeah. It's funny.
Awesome.
I was never like a huge sci-fi fan, and I don't even know on whose recommendation I picked that up. But I just remember I was around some friends, and in between chapters, just have a huge grin on my face. People are like, "What are you so happy about? Like, what are you?" And I was like, "This is just so rad. It's such a good story." I'm excited to hopefully they do the book justice with the movie, although that's always difficult.
Yeah, I don't have my hopes for it, but I'll definitely glad it's being made, I suppose. Why not? All right. So let's talk about Fishbowl, the work that you do there, and are there any unique challenges? I'm sure there are. There's unique challenges in testing in VR. Could you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar anyone else is with a site called usertesting.com, but I'd mentioned kind of some other startups that I was at previously, and it's such a rad service. You kind of go in, you say, okay, I'm working on this type of website, and this is what my kind of regular user looks like, and maybe you've added a new feature or something, and you just post the link and maybe some instructions and who you're interested in using your site, and then they'll go record themselves and narrate their experience, and then in like as short as an hour back, you get these videos of real people using your site. And I always just found that so informative. And then in meeting VR developers at meetups and then just kind of following the space and VR being a new medium, I was like, well, I wonder who's doing this for VR, and then talking to developers and asking, like, does this sound like something you would use? And no one was doing it, so we did it. I mean, some of the obvious challenges, I think, are, if you take something like the Vive and room scale VR, maybe the traditional video game companies or even film directors in Hollywood, you bring people into a stadium like this, or you bring people into a conference room and have them play a console game, like just the space and cost of having people come in and do VR and trying to observe them while you're going about your day-to-day development of an application is difficult. Obviously, until there's wider adoption or as the market kind of takes shape, there's only so many people like locally that you could reach out to that are experienced with VR and that can give you quality feedback. So I think those are two of the big challenges. And I think also the challenges with any kind of testing is that it's really hard to replicate what your actual, like when someone goes to Steam and downloads something and then plays it, it's hard to replicate that experience and really get a good idea for how your app's going to be received. You may think you're getting that kind of feedback if you're out at meetups or at E3 or Oculus Connect 2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly better than nothing, or bringing people into a conference room and asking them what they think. But I think this approach where we have this panel of hundreds of people that really are passionate about VR, that understand VR, and are experienced with VR, available to give kind of unbiased, candid feedback about what developers are doing, I think is a really big improvement off of other ways that people do.
Yeah. So it's like where people would be playing, where the users would be playing at their house with this technology. So it's not in a conference center, not any other distractions, sometimes the microphones or whatever, being able to focus and pay attention and having your own peripherals that you're using, I think, are important too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I'm rereading that Jesse Schell's, textbook on game design. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I know the book. I haven't read it. I mean, it's something I'd love to consume.
They have all these different lenses in which to view what you're building, and like the first one I think that they talk about is environment, and they have this idea of like a workbench or the hearth, like a fireplace, or the living room or public spaces, and really thinking about, as an application developer, where your app gets consumed. And I think it's important when you're trying to get real feedback on whether what you're building is working or not, to, as close as possible, replicate what that mindset and actual physical location is that people are going to be using your app, as opposed to, again, like bringing people into a conference room or Upload, there are some great parties, but like when you're demoing and there's like techno on in the background and like people are half cocked, it's like you're not exactly.
Yeah. That's not. I think analytical, right? It's not really a good testing environment. The conferences. Yeah. Cool. What are some of the unique opportunities of testing in VR?
It's a good question. It's been fun to see how, I don't come from the video game background, but it seems like there's a lot of collaboration and sharing about like what people are working on. And I think one of the biggest opportunities is like finding things that work that maybe you wouldn't think would. Like, now that we're building like worlds instead of like apps on screens or, straight stories, that they're like all these new, mechanics and approaches and business models. I'm like, it's just a wide open field for anyone that has, that is creative and willing to experiment and wants to get out and build stuff. So you see all these really cool anecdotes between like the Alchemy Labs guys talking about how they, like in Job Simulator, figuring out how, like the coffee and the milk work, but the ability like to create that world that you can interact with is just, it's rad, right? Or what was I reading novel. Recently? Yeah. Or like in Fantastic Contraption, there's a cool thing. I forget where the interview came from, but how they have that cat that kind of follows you around to reload your weapons. And like the initial approach was, well, let's do what we've done in video games all the time. Everyone knows how those menus work. That might be how you would approach it. But then there are all these like novel and like frankly way doper ways to do things that are unique to the medium and native to VR. So I think that's like the coolest opportunity, is to develop these new like ways of doing things.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to like, it's like environmental design. I don't know if you know Mike Alger is, but he had some of those great UI designing for VR and UI videos like 6 months ago. But it's basically building a world. Yeah, he was on the show. He got actually a VR chatter for, I don't know, a year and a half now. So he was sort of studying this environment too, and he was doing all his research for that work and other work. So, but yeah, it's a world designing, environmental. I love that cat that you get to move around. It has all the tools you need. It's cute, and delightful, and like in real life, we go to play things, pull stuff out, use them. That's pretty cool. So what's Fishbowl's process? Like, how does Fishbowl work? What's the workflow or your structure? What tell us a bit more about Fishbowl.
So developers come to us. They say, they tell us what app they're building and on what platform. And then we match what they're looking for, what kind of testers they're looking for, and what platforms with our testing panel of, I think I mentioned at the top, it's like more than 500 people. The testers from the comfort of their home will record a split-screen view, so a webcam view of what they're doing, and then another view of what they're seeing in VR, and then they'll narrate their experience. Afterwards, they upload the video to our platform, they complete a short survey, and then the developer gets a nice little dashboard with all of the playtest videos, the survey feedback, as well as information about the testers and the machines, and then the different playtest experiences.
Okay, so you're collecting all the data about their hardware and their operating system and all of that, so it's provided in your dashboard. Their comments, so the videos that are taken of them playing, all this stuff is available to their clients through this dashboard? Yep. Seems like it makes it pretty easy. What does it cost for your clients to have, something tested?
Yeah, so as a rule of thumb, we've kept it pretty simple and affordable. It's $40 per tester, and then they typically do 6 to 20 testers at a time. And then what we'll see with a lot of developers is with each new build or with each new feature, they'll then come back to Fishbowl for a set of tests to see, ideally improvement from kind of build to build, release to release.
That makes sense. And how much time do these testers take? They're recording their experience themselves. They're filling out a description and their thoughts. About how long does it take a tester to go through that process?
It really depends on the app as far as the play test. Some are shorter demos that take 10 or 15 minutes. Others are experiences that can last quite a long time, and I think debunk a lot of assumptions people have around how long people are comfortable in VR. I guess VRChat is a great example of debunking that as well. And then ideally, I think as we get better at, as a software to record, especially as it relates to mobile recording has been kind of a pain, but as those processes improve, we hopefully cut down on the time. It's still quite manual now, but certainly worth it for the developers. And then, of course, the bonus to a lot of the testing panel is a chance not only to access stuff before it's released, but I think help shape, and accelerate, understanding on the part of the development community about what works and what doesn't, and so that's really cool.
I think it's a great service, a great niche. I know some of your clients, some of them are friends of mine, and I love that they're benefiting from your testing service. Their games are getting better, their software experience is getting better, so that feeds into us. The people testing are they're having a good time learning or seeing new content, but they're also learning so much more about VR and development by constantly having a stream of new stuff to have to report on, to have to make videos. Anybody can go and maybe they want to be a YouTuber and start recording videos, but they just don't end up. This kind of gives them a little more incentive and maybe some ways to learn that. So it can be tricky recording, all these things with like Open Broadcaster is very popular. I've used that. I think a lot of the YouTubers use that. Yeah. Is it hard to get people to create the quality videos or up to the proper bit rate, or that that they are filming themselves in real life? Do you have to iterate with your testers to keep helping them along with that, or do they need to already have that skill set, else they just aren't going to work out, or how's that work?
Yeah. So far it's been more of kind of having that skill set, or kind of, I think, developing it on the fly, but a lot of those skill sets remain. I think for us to scale, and as VR starts to get larger and larger and we do wider scale tests, we need to make that whole process easier, kind of regardless of technical know-how, again, especially in the mobile front. But I'm constantly impressed with the production quality of the videos, especially now that we're getting into doing more and more tests of Vive. So you're mic'd up and you're narrating your experience as you're shooting from a distance. It's just really great stuff. And again, I think opens up a new lens for developers about how people are using their content that just wasn't previously possible.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you've been doing this for, I've known that you've been around for about a year at least.
Yeah, a little over a year ago. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so a little over a year ago, I was curious, like what you've seen change. You've seen us go from DK2 to consumer launch to, room scale and motion tracking, and the content is getting upgraded and better, and we're seeing AAAs come into things. Like, any stories or thoughts on this last year and things that you've seen, or anything interesting there?
Well, I mean, I think like everybody here, I'm constantly amazed by how novel new applications and new worlds and experiences. I still think we have a long way to go to have more fully formed experiences that there's still a lot of unknowns related to the business model and kind of, what you can create that people will buy at a big enough scale. And for the time being, I mean, it's great that you've got Oculus and Valve and Samsung helping, rightfully supporting, content development, but we still have a lot. I think the community has a lot to figure out about what people will pay for what, and again, brand new types of experiences that maybe people haven't explored yet. What's most exciting, I think, for me is that, and again, I don't come from a video game background, but it seems to me that a lot of if you can approach VR with fresh eyes and really looking at the platform natively, it gives small, 1, 2, or comparatively small teams an opportunity to, I think, really make a dent, where maybe that's not the case, or certainly not the case in like the console or PC space. So, I mean, if I think some of the greatest, my favorite apps so far, I mean, whether it's Titans of Space or Sightline the Chair, or like Matt Scott's game Faceted Flight, like all made by, as well as one-man teams competing or creating greater content that, you mentioned a lot of these, I think other studios have their own, maybe a lot of money or talent and time at the problem, but there's a chance for creative thinkers and just doers to get out and really make a mark, which is awesome.
Absolutely. So if I'm
VRChat's
playing,
a great example.
It is, absolutely is. Curious. I'm going to talk to you a little more about social VR and VRChat and stuff towards the end of the show. I'm curious what you think and maybe how testing can be involved in this. But before that, if I'm a tester, what about things like NDAs? Do your testers have to sign NDAs, or do you not accept those kind of situations?
So as part of like the account creation profile, there's a confidentiality and privacy agreement, and then on a per app basis, we do have testers sign NDAs so that the testing behavior or the testing results and the assets from that are all kept private. And then we're constantly looking at ways that we can, provide additional layers of security. But that, we've been doing this for over a year, and that hasn't been an issue to date. So. And I don't anticipate it being one. It's a very professional group, and I think we take a lot of the testing really seriously. And
so you're creating this great group of testers. Like here in social VR and in the VR community, it's been just fantastic to meet the community, to become friends with them, to really establish some deep relationships. And I know that, like, if you're working with Reality Check over Caleb, then you're working with an awesome guy, and I bet that's the case. You're finding these awesome people in the VR community, just like I'm seeing them in other aspects. The VR community is it's pretty awesome. It's filled with great, talented, and kind-hearted people.
I could not have said it better myself, but I mean, I think about previously being at kind of a 9-to-5 in different roles, and as stressful as maybe my life can sometimes feel like with a startup and now a baby on the way, like the relationships that I've been able to develop with people, I mean, it's just a rad group to get to know, super supportive, smart, and again, like the insights. And I mean, I guess that's part of the, I don't know how to convey this very well, but I feel like VR as a medium and playtesting playing a more central role, a lot of the content creation is collaborative with the audience. You might think that you can kind of, and I think one of the AAA mindsets is this kind of like, we're going to develop something behind this, kind of in private, and then we're going to, release it at E3 in this fully formed thing. And that's just not the way to approach a new medium that requires experimentation and feedback and iteration. And you see a lot of developers realizing that and then tapping into, whether it's their own community of fans or hopefully with services like us, to really glean insights into how they can improve. I mean, you see, like they had that Steam VR roundtable. I think they explicitly explained that a lot of the best features and ideas came directly from playtesting sessions. And that speaks not only to the importance of playtesting, but also to just the intelligence, curiosity, and of the type of people that are in our testing panel.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I assume Reality Check is still here. It'd be great if you could talk about getting set up with Geoff, and like, since you're a tester, what's it like to be a tester in your words? Why don't you come on down if you're here? Hopefully you are and you're not just AFK. All right.
I'm just AFK in a way. What's up, man? Hey, unfortunately you can't see my hands though, although I am moving them around. I just see my own ones.
I immediately, I thought you were Guile from a distance, but that shows my age.
Yeah, it totally looks like Guile.
Hey now. Well, meeting Geoff was obviously one of the great things of VR, obviously. Meeting you yourself is one of them. But you're two different worlds, one and the same, just completely separate. Geoff's over on the cutting edge in the sense that he's talking to these guys and figuring out what's happening and finding a way to obviously get us testers involved. But I think basically the way it happened was I started talking to VR Gamer Dude, and he was like, hey, have you heard of that Fishbowl VR? And I had seen it a long time ago. I had seen Fishbowl VR pop up on Twitter, but I didn't do anything about it until, VR Gamer Dude said, hey, that is something you should check out. Geoff's a really nice guy. So I went on there, I looked at the website, and it basically says, hey, join our testing group, sign up. Anybody can sign up, and all you got to do is submit a test. So after signing up, they basically send you an email that gives you a test that you can then play a game and submit them footage of about 15 minutes of you playing a game, side-by-side game footage and webcam, and just talking about the experiencing, how it made you feel and what you liked about it and didn't like. And then you do a short survey. After that short survey, you submit it, and then he'll message you back, obviously, and say, hey, here's some more tests based on, what he said earlier, whether, if you're into certain things, whatever the testers want or whatever the developers want, he'll then apply tests to you, also based on the equipment that you have. So knowing that I have a Gear VR and a CV1, I get Gear VR and CV1 tests. And of course, since I have motion controllers now, if by chance that becomes something that's the case, I'll get those kind of things. And it's just it's a really easy thing that I can either accept or deny. I don't have any pressure to do it, which is really nice. So.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah, and I mean they come quite often. I mean, Geoff lately. I mean, you can talk for yourself about this. It seems like he's been getting just a heck of a lot more and more people that have been getting involved the last few months. There hasn't been a week without a test, it seems like, in a while. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the how frequent people are able to test.
I was going to say, Caleb, thanks for following the script. I'll just send to the regular PayPal.
Yeah. Well done.
The frequency has varied, and I think Caleb speaks to things. Well, even at by platform, like lately, there have been a lot more interest in mobile VR testing. It's hard to say. Yeah, and things are changing. Hopefully, a lot more soon.
Sure. Who are some of the, actually, I want to wrap up here with you, Caleb. What I wanted to know for the audience, I'm sure there's a lot of people thinking, oh, shoot, I can test. Like, can you give them some of the advice, like, or where you're on VR Spies, maybe there's the guide on how to record with OBS, or like you and K-Dog were talking before the show about recording Gear VR because that's challenging. A little advice for the people that are just starting out.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when you go to the actual website, when you begin to do your first Fishbowl test after you sign up, he has a nice little link on there that actually gives you a few different people's examples, showing you what they've done. So you can actually watch several different people. Also, I believe we're going to be having some different tutorials pop out. I know I worked on one myself, basically just kind of explaining to people, and those things haven't quite come out yet, but we're working on those, and they're kind of on the way right now. As far as that, we're certainly going to be having updated articles on vrspies.com. I know Dawn wrote an article a while back on Gear VR and how to record with that. Unfortunately, that only kind of applies to Note 4s, but if you have a Note 4, hey, go check that one out. It certainly is good for you. But no, what you said is a great thing. As far as anybody who wants to get involved in this, it's something to certainly do. If you've got a VR headset right now, you're already on the inside, guys. So there's no reason to think that you can't do this stuff. I mean, apply in there. If Geoff has tests to do, he's going to send them out to you. And as far as getting them done, as long as you can do them within about a week's time, I think is usually the time limit he asks for them to get done. And for what we're normally doing, playing games, to spend a few hours doing a test, it's fulfilling, and it's nice not only to have a voice in the VR community, it's nice to be able to see a game later come out, and be like, hey, I had something to do with that, and it just kind of makes you feel good. So, plus you can use this kind of stuff on, developer applications and other things later in the future. You can say, hey, I helped play test, and people love hearing that, so it's just a good thing overall, and you're helping people, and you can make some money on the side. So, that's what I got for that, Geoff. Appreciate it. I'll go sit down now.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much, Caleb. Yeah. No, that was perfect to hear from a tester's perspective. And of course, VRChat VR has a YouTube channel. He streams and records all this stuff all the time. So I consider him an expert. If I needed to know how to do anything along these lines, he would be the one.
Thanks, buddy. I am recording you right now, so you better watch what you say. I know. It goes without saying.
I have hard times, yeah. I'm always being recorded, and I'm always screwing up what I'm saying anyway, so. It's funny, just quick, Reality Check found this place one night. He's like testing out VRChat for fun, and he comes into Gunters Universe for the first time, and he's not sure what's going on, so he's stumbling around. He doesn't know if this is pre-recorded. He doesn't know if this is a classroom. He's thinking, like, because it's this virtual school, and he recorded his video, so I got to go afterwards and see his experience of coming into the show for the first time. Of course, he comes down, and we talk during the show. I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, this is what we do, and give him all the information, and it was really this cool video of his, so it just makes me feel like he was testing it, and it has that same kind of...
Scariest moment of VR ever right there.
Cool. Let's see. What clients have you scored? Clients that we might know in the VR community.
I mentioned Schell Games we've worked with, Jaunt VR, Altspace. We've been working lately with Alex Chu, who's rad. He was on the Gear VR team. He's working on a really cool app called Vicarious. D-Rash, to Titans of Space. Scott, quite a few people. It was funny. I was just thinking as Caleb was talking about testing in VRChat. One of the things I'm most interested in is how we might, I think there's so many interesting social dynamics for VR, obviously, and VRChat being like a central place in which I think a lot of this stuff is being figured out, and Altspace as well, is if you are developing these ways in which people like serendipitously connect or otherwise communicate, like how do you test that out in like connecting to strangers? And I think certainly the traditional model of playtesting of bringing in some local organization or bringing in friends and family to, again, like playtest in a conference room or to get feedback, really not possible. So I'm excited about the creative ways that developers might use this panel of really great testers to try to more quickly and intelligently get insights about like what might work and how you might structure things. You guys, VRChat's been a great example, and you can only imagine the additional, and Altspace has been doing some really interesting things, obviously, around, stand-up comedy or, tabletop gaming, but, there are just endless possibilities, and I'm excited, obviously excited where they can take that, but also hopeful that we can help play a role in people learning more quickly.
Yeah, I was curious about how this would interact. A lot of the people that come out are testers, essentially. They're the ones trying out. But there's the people that develop in Unity and bring this stuff here. So they're sort of testing, we test those environments, but obviously there's a need for tests everywhere. But or what can we do if somebody already has a game? I don't know if we really could have a role in helping with like, hey, this is a place that these guys could bring their game content into, but you can't bring the whole game in. So I don't know how it would actually work out, but it feels like there's something that VRChat and this whole social thing we got going on that could help with testing, but I'm not really sure where the dots connect.
I have to noodle on it.
Yeah. Well, it's talking about social VR. Yeah, so basically you've been to AltSpace, you're curious where these things are going to go. You know, I obviously am banking on that this is sort of the future. Are you seeing a lot more of the content that you guys are testing having multiplayer features? Because I assume that's what we're going to see more and more of is other titles just building in their multiplayer components.
We are, and then I don't sound disingenuous, but I think that's another advantage of, like, when you have this large group of people. Like, if you are developing a multiplayer title, like we just started working with the Colossal team. We did an example of their, we did like a trial test of, why am I blanking?
High Fidelity?
It's not the VR. No, it's not VR Tennis Online. It's the Pong one. The upload just made a mixed reality group.
Cyberpong
video
or
on
something?
it. Cyberpong, yeah. But if you're if you're a developer anywhere in the world and you're trying to get a real sense of how people log into a service and then connect with other people online to match up and either team up to go do something or to meet and play, that's incredibly difficult to replicate in a testing environment without just putting something up and out into the world. So I'm hopeful. We definitely are seeing more of that. Or also, what I'm perhaps most excited about is other applications completely unrelated to gaming that we've started to do testing on. So people that are starting to experiment around, medical health, education, those kinds of applications. I'm really excited to see where people take that. When you think about language learning or easing stress or anxiety, that's super cool. Obviously, it's super interesting.
Yeah, I think us in the community, we're just waiting for more. Like, we are VR enthusiasts. We're not just gamers. Like, we want to see VR, bloom into the potential that it has, and it needs to branch out in these other environments. And then I want to see, okay, now they're in these things. What are they going to do with them? Like, we know it's going to be in education, and we know it's going to be in medical, or I want to see some of the other things I haven't thought about yet. Can't wait.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a tired analogy, but when they say that, like, VR is like when we went from the stage to film, and that early filmmakers filmed plays, basically. So I have heard that repeated a bunch of times, but it does kind of ring true, right? It feels like there are,
absolutely.
As you're able to think outside of the box, there are brand new, completely novel approaches to things that people are starting to take, and I'm excited. I mean, what a time to be alive,
Yeah. Yeah, building another, here I'm building a universe. Who would have thought? It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I hope the user experience is good here. I actually thinking about the social dynamics. So not so much is the latency okay, or is the technical part, or can you navigate, but the whole social dynamics and I don't know, how close you are to a person is a thing, but more how you should conduct yourself in a social VR setting, or not trying to be somebody's daddy here, but somehow testing, how do you make this place better? Well, it's by community, and how can we make our community better? And it's testing some of that out. I don't know. Things coming to my mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you saw all that happen on the web, right? Like communities. I used to run online communities for that company I mentioned at the top, the Active Network. There are all these online communities around interests, so like running, softball, Little League baseball, etc. But it was so interesting to even observe, communities grow, and then the social dynamics at play when sometimes they disintegrate, or there's big fighting, or it's such a delicate balance to foster a great community, and it could so easily be kind of undermined by bad actors, and that'll all have to be figured out in a much more difficult way in VR. When super interesting stuff.
Yeah. I saw on your website that you're looking for a developer, and that, I don't know, are you doing other services? Like, I saw maybe you needed a QA lead. I saw PM, I saw CTO. Are you taking testing beyond just sort of the game tester? Or what's all of that about?
We are hiring for a senior engineer. Email jobs at Fishbowl VR, or me, Geoff, Geoff, at Fishbowl VR. My co-founder, Josh, he's just an incredible engineer, brilliant dude. He was one of the early engineers at Justin TV and helped build Twitch. And then he and I met at that startup, PopExpert, that I mentioned.
I remember Justin TV, like the first month when it was just that guy wearing a camera at Justin for a month. Like when finally you could stream, through cellular.
Yeah.
Ring a bell?
And then, totally. Yeah. And then the whole thing was like, they had raised money, and then it's not like that wasn't a viable business plan. And one of the experiments, which I think we try to take, one of the approaches to our business is keeping an open mind on things that we can build to help support, the developer community. But Twitch was kind of a small experiment. It was like, well, no one's going to want to watch other people playing video games. But then how wrong they were.
Right.
So we are hiring, and then I think we're also nothing in the QA. I mean, the panel of testers is who we rely on to do testing.
Right.
But I think we're always looking at trying to talk to as many developers as possible, which we already just do through the course of the playtesting business, but to find out where people are running into problems or issues, or where we can make their lives easier, or where we can otherwise help accelerate learnings about just broadly what works and what doesn't. So to that end, I think you'll probably see more from us. I think between Josh's engineering jobs, people we hire, and I think feedback from the great developers that we work with and the testing panel, I think hopefully here for a long time and building a lot more cool shit. That's just the play testing, which in and of itself is valuable.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple more things, but I wanted to kind of prompt the audience to think about any questions, so we'll be going around the audience here in just a moment. My last two questions are any advice for developers or people getting into VR, or wanting to test, or kind of a broad question?
Yeah, I think you hear this echoed by a lot of the most the pioneering developers, like whether it's a Fantastic Contraption crew or Alchemy Labs, or even if you talk to Matt or Steve, it's that it's also might sound disingenuous, but experiment early and experiment often, try a bunch of stuff out. Again, don't feel like there's just I think we feel like we all know this, but there's just so many new and novel ways to approach this. So it would be experiment a lot, but then what goes hand in hand with that is test early and often. Go get once you have something don't wait too long to go get real feedback on whether what you're building, figuring out whether whether people like it or not, and what's working and what's not working. I think the tendency is always to wait a little bit too long. You need to do it earlier than you think, and again, get real, candid, unbiased feedback, not others on the development team or other people that have been close to this application that you've been developing for 2, 6, 20 months. Go get real feedback from real people earlier, or else it's just going to be more costly in the long run, and you'll have gone too far down the rabbit hole to be able to make more fundamental changes that are often required.
Right, and then you have to rework major systems and lose lots of time, which is money. And,
or punt.
We need more time in VR. So that's great. great advice. And that there's a service now for people to take advantage. So yeah, I'm really glad to see your success over this last year. It's really great. 500 people in the in the group. That's amazing.
Thanks, brother. It's crazy to continue to see like people that had met a year ago and just other people doing it. I mean, between like Patrick with Tilt Brush, or I mean, the list goes on and on. Or the Upload guys who started with, I remember going to meetups here in San Francisco. There was what we thought was like a packed house, and it was not. It's a couple dozen people, and now those guys are throwing like rooftop rangers in Las Vegas and have freaking it's just I was just over at their space last week. It's a trip to see how far things have gone in a year, and super exciting to see where they're going to be. I'm just glad I'm just grateful to be involved at all in what is just a great community.
Yep, me too. Last question is, what's the future, man? What's coming up next? What's your plans or your vision?
Yeah, I don't know. There's the nice thing is that I'm not entirely sure, but I know that we have more. The issue is not the number of ways that I think we could take this, the ways that you could take, that you can grow a panel of like super insightful and experienced testers and early adopters and VR enthusiasts, and the software that you can build around testing and better understanding VR. Like there are a lot of different ways that we can take this. So better to have, I think, more options and then focus on one and execute it than not have anywhere to go. For now, we're going to continue to grow the panel and continue to build, do as good a job with the playtesting as we can and get more and more developers through it. And then I think once they start using the service, they continue to use it over time. And then again, like trying to, just like developership with testers, we try to listen intently to the development community around what challenges they're facing and how we might be able to come in. So a bit of a vague answer, but I think you'll be seeing additional stuff from us relatively soon.
Awesome. Yep. Can't wait to hear that. Okay, guys. Anybody in the audience have any questions?
Sure.
For Geoff? Who's that?
That's Six Marbles. I've got a question for you. So VR experiences for me have varied pretty greatly, and I think probably the biggest negative point that I've come up with in most experiences is lack of customizability for things like locomotion and UI. So as someone who frequently tests everything, looking at VRChat, it's a fantastic example of it. For example, I can do like tank mode motion. I don't know what the technical term for that. I guess decoupled look. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Things like that. Is this feedback that you frequently submit to developers?
Well, I don't know that I have a direct answer because it's not like I will go individually kind of consult. One thing that we have kind of a list of default ratings and then free-form questions that testers answer after each test. So rate on a scale of 1 to 5, inspired by Jesse Schell's rating system, the audio, menu, UI, comfort level, etc. But then also things like, if you had a magic wand, how would you improve this experience? And I can definitely say that oftentimes the suggestions from the testers that are testing a given application relate to the customizability. And I definitely feel you just like anecdotally or just personally. I know what you're getting at with that. Kind of one size fits all approach to some of the customization or even how you navigate. So I don't know if that answers, but
yeah, usability versus comfort. I think for newer users, it might be a default option that you've got look move, and for advanced users, it may go to something else, or you may as long as you've got the option presented. In my personal opinion, you empower the user to kind of make his experience his own.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic of how much control, do you only have comfort controls? Well, you're going to piss me and a bunch of other people off if I can't use, standard motion controls or standard like Xbox or locomotion, however, I can locomote just fine, and when I can't, it's really frustrating. But then there's the option of like if people are teleporting around here in VRChat, like that's not really that cool either. And it breaks the realism, even though it's saving with comfort. So it is very challenging.
Agreed.
More questions?
Yeah,
I've got one.
All right, we'll start with Mechle.
As a amateur game developer with a Rift and Vive, where do I sign up?
There you go.
It's fishbowlvr.com.
Fishbowlvr.com.
Which-
Okay.
And I think right before I came on, much like this system, the site was down for the first time in forever. So perfect timing between.
Always
And again, thanks
happens.
for Moore's Law. Thanks for not Moore's Law.
Yeah.
Thanks
No.
for everyone for the patience. No, what damn law is that? But thanks everyone for the patience with my technical difficulty. This is
Not a worry. I've had it even worse, so it just happens. I used to live in an RV for a year and a half. I just moved back into my house a couple months ago, and so I used to do the show from my RV through my Verizon wireless connection. And I would say for 90% of my time in here over the last year doing my show, it was fine. But there are some shows that were pretty brutal because I might be far out in the sticks sometimes.
the Vice article.
The Vice article, yay.
That's just like my friend H.
Exactly. She's awesome.
Who would have thought?
Cool. More questions before we wrap up. Any, if you're thinking of signing up, it's a good time to ask anything.
Yeah, I have a quick one.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Eloyd.
Yeah, I've been working with Geoff for a while. Just to say he's a really great guy. And it's been a pleasure to work with him.
Sweet.
All
right. How much did you pay him?
This is where all of our
so you-
capitals.
No.
So you mentioned briefly educational apps, and I think those are some of the most exciting experiences, like the Apollo application, Titans of Space. There's some great diving experiences. Do you see VR becoming kind of an essential part of education, bringing it into schools? I know Google has quite a few projects where they're encouraging that.
Definitely. I mean, I think anyone that it's hard to pinpoint when I knew. I was like, I don't know how, but I think a lot of people here, it's I'm going to be devoting a good chunk of my time, whether it's free or otherwise, to VR. But just going through Titans of Space initially, that was one of those moments where you finished that 20-minute demo and you're like, the fuck astronomy class? There's no way you would teach that when you have this, right? It's such a radically improved way to teach that subject matter, and you can only imagine things like language learning where immersion plays a key role. As we start to get better about AI and interaction, where you can think about one-on-one teaching or even simulating some portions of that and having customized learning tracks. Education is probably the area I'm most excited about. What's tough, and there's a guy, Alex Bowles, he's working on an interesting kind of history teaching application, but things get I think a little scary on the business model side when you talk about getting into classrooms and universities and otherwise. But I think generally VR is going to be one of the most exciting things is the imprint that it can have in the immediate term about whether that just means a kid at home, you used to go out to pull down the encyclopedia. Imagine being able to go to these worlds and learn on your own initiative. That's to be able to play some small role in that, and even just having a 3-week-old. I'm super excited just about the opportunities for autodidactic learning, or just what people are going to come up with.
Yeah, because it's I think of the Matrix plugging in and learning a new program, and now I can do Kung Fu. It's obviously not going to be like that, but how does VR accelerate it? And I like learning, so being able to learn in VR, I'm just excited about being on that side of it.
And even the social level of one-on-one interaction. Big game changer.
That's huge, yeah.
I was
Changed my
just
life.
randomly thinking about I grew up. I was a big baseball fan growing up, and it's Well, I just downloaded the baseball app on the Vive. It's kind of cool. I don't think I spent more than 10 minutes in it, but it's a little like cartoony. But if you think about like trying to learn how to hit a curveball and like all of the things you need, I forget the group at Stanford that's doing sports training, but if you're trying to learn to set up like replicating what it's like to see like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball come by you, got to have like the person throw the baseballs and then you're hitting it, and then if they hit you, it's going to hurt real bad. So like the intricacies of learning sports and being able to like slow down time and space and like really study things, whether that's for training or otherwise. It's like one of a million different examples of things I'm excited about for when you're creating these worlds and the ability to, What is it? I don't know who makes it. Is it like Alden something it's for the Vibe, but you got that where you're making spells, and then you can like lift up your arms, and then like everything in the room in the air like goes up, and then you crash it all down. Like, that stuff always feels good when you have like God mode of
superpowers. Yeah, magic powers. Totally. That's what I want. Need more of that. There's some people. I don't know if they're here tonight. Walter the Wizard. I still haven't tried. I downloaded it. There's a few things on my list to try, and that's one of them. There's some VRChat wizards that are around. I don't know if so many of them are here tonight, and maybe I'm. I see one over there. People that their avatars can do very special effects and spawn things, and so they essentially do start to get to be those wizards and superpowers here, and it's pretty cool because they've evolved as well. Any more questions, Geoff, before we wrap it up? Feel free.
I just wanted to say that was a really great point, what he meant with the baseball. I had a young kid over yesterday that was playing the similar baseball game, and I didn't realize he didn't know what a tee was for t-ball because he's never played t-ball. I mean, he's only like 3rd, 4th grade or something like that, and I got to show him what an actual tee with a t-ball was and what that meant. And that actually got him excited to go and sign up for t-ball to go play in real life.
Cool.
Yep, and one other thing, just kind of, you guys talk about education. Hey, for once, the kid that's homeschooled is no longer going to be made fun of. Instead, he's envied. You know?
Amen.
Yep.
There you go. I mean, we can all be playing together and still be in one spot, which is great. So, yeah, we've all said that 100 times. But no, great show, guys.
I know that Reality Check pretty much did an evaluation on what it's like to do tests for Fishbowl. But I'm at the page right now, and I did a bunch of, I've gone through the sign-up process, and it just says to do a sample test, and I'm just wondering what all's required for a sample test. Do I need to be recording my video of my screen, or do I need to be recording video of myself, or?
It should have. I believe there is a link. Yeah, there should be a link that's sent to you that gives you an example. There definitely is one. I'll go and check it myself. The tutorials that I've made are not up on the site yet, that's for sure. But yeah, Geoff, as far as I remember, you do have a tutorial that's on there. But yeah, what they want you to do basically is just record the game as well as record your webcam. You know, and for example, some games don't record side by side, so you've got a full screen image of the game. I generally put my webcam in a small corner, you know, and otherwise you're going to have to make one of the screens smaller to make them fit. That's just life. So, but yeah, just as long as you can see the game and you at the same time, because they want to see your reactions and how you play and what you do. Sometimes it's not obvious what somebody's doing with just the video. So we want to see people as well, because that just totally, you know, tells you a lot about their body behavior, you know, off screen. So it's just good to have.
We also have a really friendly Slack channel, so if you have any questions, come in and
I heard about that.
happy to help.
Yeah, but one thing, Mekla, you said you're a developer yourself, and I think that's perfect, because when you're doing these tests, I mean, whether you're a developer or not, you want to be giving feedback to developers to make their games better, good feedback, things that you like, things that you don't like, and you basically want to run these tests as if it was your game, and, you know, tell them things that you want to add and or don't like, and I don't know, it's just really good to have that kind of an eye, or just think about it in that sense, regardless of whether or not you're doing a project yourself. But yeah.
So basically, you need a webcam. If you don't have a webcam, then that's your next probably by.
Oh,
And
yeah.
is there a minimum, like 970 is the minimum, or do we have some slack with that now with like asynchronous time warp, or is there?
We haven't really prescribed. That's kind of an area that we.
Okay.
Because these aren't
Cool.
going commercial, the videos don't have to be the highest quality. I mean, when I do a video for YouTube, I try to do, a very high encoding rate, and I try to do 60 frames per second. Whereas when I'm submitting them to Fishbowl, they're 30 frames per second, and I still generally make them 1080p, but they don't have to be these humongous production value videos. If anything, you just need to start recording, and put the whole file in there. You don't even need to do editing to it unless you want to clip off the ending or clip off the beginning. So it's not like one of those things you have to do a whole lot of work to. But getting it set up originally does take some time if you've never done any kind of YouTube recording with your VR videos. But there's a lot of people out there that can help you with that. As well as the Fishbowl site having tutorials, there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube, and feel free to send me a message if you have any questions as well. I'll love to help. So.
It just sounds like
to piggyback on that.
Mhm.
I was just going to say, the super high production quality isn't a value, but the webcam view and just the ability for developers and just anyone on those development teams are able to actually see another human being that they don't know. There's like something, magical is a bad word, but there's something like that makes the experience really tangible. When someone has a frustrating moment, it like really hits home, and I think that's where the real value in the service comes, this ability to get this kind of unvarnished feedback of what people are thinking and feeling as they go through your application, whatever stage of development. And that's kind of proven out through a bunch of research studies where like exposure hours to real users like directly correlates to improved user experience. And I think the developers that have used it or that go through that can kind of test, can speak to that. Not to again talk about the service, but I thought it was relevant.
Yeah. I do want to second that, just because there's so many times when I'm playing a game where I have to just stop and I smile and I just stare down because I'm just so happy about whatever happened, and there's no way you would know that if you're just watching the video. So absolutely, man, VR is just funny. At least we get to hide our eyes when something sad happens. Ayo.
I imagine you focus on people's mouths, right? Like if they're smiling or they have no expression, like that's where you need to look because you can't see their eyeballs. And listening to them, of course.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, yeah, I think Fishbowl has a Slack. That's probably a great first step for everybody. Just jump on Slack. Slack is basically Skype but works. And then you have everybody there that can help you with all the how to record in the right way and all that stuff.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think I need to add a link to that on the site. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. And we have a Slack as well, VRChat.
Quick question on the video recording submission. Has anybody used 360 videos, or would you be opposed to that? The way I usually have it set up is in between me and my monitor, so you could look to the monitor, see what's going on, look back over to me, or would that be too much of a, having to go back and forth?
Huh. That's to be honest, I haven't even contemplated that. That's I guess I have to see how it looks. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. I'll sign up and we'll try it out.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not even sure if you can hear me right now. Can you hear me?
Yep,
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. Those videos are super cool. It would definitely be work for the developer to have to move it back and forth. Granted, if you can do it, I mean, you're one of the few people that can or that has a 360 camera right now. I mean, it's a way to make yourself different. At the same time, it does show everything that's going on. As long as you can clearly see your screen, properly, I don't think it would be too much of a problem because they could move it back and forth if they'd want to. But if it would be possible, for them to actually have a frame where they could see you and the screen at the same time, and you could, that would be preferable. That way they could see them both. But at the same time, if they could still send the whole view around, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't experimented with picture-in-picture type of style with 360. I don't know if I can put that there where when you're scrolling the video side to side, there would be a separate video down in the corner that would not scroll. So that's a good point.
Yeah, it's possible.
Blowing my mind.
Awesome.
No, I've seen some people do a 360 video where they imported the video they didn't have a screen in front of them, so they just literally imported the game footage in front of them, and it's a pretty cool way of doing it. So I mean, I'm interested to see what you can come up with. Just experiment, man, experiment.
Cool.
Right on. All right. Well, I think that's gonna call it a show there, and you can find Fishbowl at fishbowlvr.com and on Twitter at fishbowlvr. Geoff, anything else to mention before we go tonight? Any other places you want to point people to?
No, just thanks to you for having me. Thanks to everybody for showing up and for your patience with the technical difficulties. Again, if you want to reach out to me about anything, it's Geoff, Geoff, at fishbowlvr.com. And then thanks again to the people on our panel that have showed up and that are really the bread and butter and the special sauce of what we do. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great having you. Thanks so much. Just a couple VRChat announcements. We are doing a summer adventure. You and one of our community members put together a great summer, nice beach, sunny weather, great warm water, and fun activities to do. It's actually starting today, and it will last through the 4th of July. So come hang out in VRChat, and you'll see some new fun stuff. And, of course, every Sunday is our meetups, our Sunday meetups. We've been doing them for, 2 years now. Come hang out. It's a lot of fun. Follow me at Gunters Universe on Twitter. Subscribe to my newsletter on guntersuniverse.com. And if you like, donate to my Patreon at patreon.com/Gunter. Big thanks to my guest, Geoff, tonight, to the Gunters Universe team that helps make this possible, and, of course, to the patrons and everybody that's watching and attending here live in VR chat. This is great. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time.
Adios.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting. That was fun.
All right.
Wait, is there no more Gunter's music? There it is. There
we go.
Thanks again, man. I think I have to go use the facilities.
What's up, dude? How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
You look kind of short there, Geoff.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming through just fine. How's that?
Really loud.
All the 5 users just freaking out with their hands going everywhere. That's awesome.
Yeah, there were a lot of people, yeah.